In this class we're going to talk about development planning for a career in business. More specifically, we're going to look at SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats facing anybody entering the labour market. And we're going to look briefly at what a CV is and how we should prepare a CV. Now, this class will overlap significantly with subsequent classes in more specialist areas of career development. So this particular class will be somewhat superficial. It will just touch on the items and introduce the items, and these will be dealt with in much more detail later on. So let's start by looking at a personal SWOT analysis. SWOT you'll recognize as a major technique in business strategy when we look at the strengths of the business, the weaknesses of the business, the opportunities and the threats facing the business also. But we can apply it to ourselves. We can apply it in our own lives. What are our individual strengths? What are our weaknesses? What opportunities have we got, and what threats have we got as well? What's on the horizon that may threaten our career or our chosen pathway? So the SWOT approach is applicable at a personal level. This is an individual strategic planning method, as I said, used to evaluate a person's strengths, weaknesses or limitations, opportunities and threats involved in achieving a personal goal. So it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. It involves specifying the career goal and identifying the internal and external factors that are favourable and unfavourable towards achieving that goal. Now, the internal factors would be our strengths and our weaknesses. These are internal. The opportunities are normally on the outside. The opportunities are what exists in the market, in the labour market, or what career development opportunities are there. So the opportunities tend to be external, and the threats are also external. There may be changes in the labour market, for example, legislation governing employment conditions in certain sectors, or there could be a threat in the sense of competition from overseas, or new requirements in order to engage in certain work practices. So there are many possibilities which are external. So we have two factors, the strengths and the weaknesses, which are internal. These are within us and we've got control over those to some extent. And the opportunities and the threats, which are external. Now let's look at a SWOT analysis approach. Well, first of all, the best thing to do in order to get one done for yourself is form a little group. The group could be at college or at a local college where students perhaps are interested in developing their careers. Or it could be a set of close friends or even family. Excuse me, it could be online people if you can trust them, if you have knowledge of them and you are sure of their motives and so on. But there's nothing personal about what we're going to do here, so there's very little risk of any comebacks associated with developing a SWOT analysis. It's simply itemizing what you are good at and what you're not so good at. And if you do form a little group, say with your family or with close friends, perhaps neighbourhood friends even, then take it in turn to discuss personal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Just make a little list. Under each heading, write down what you're good at. What are your strengths? also under your weaknesses, what can you not do that perhaps you should be able to do or you would like to do? What opportunities are there? What is in the market? How is the market changing? Perhaps the local market for labour is changing. It's becoming more perhaps technological. It's introducing more capital, and there's more automation and more computerization. Now, have you got the skills to deal with that? And what are the threats? The threats could be that the government wishes to move some industries to a different area, which will cause unemployment locally. It could happen. So the point is, start making a list, and make this list with family or with close friends, and be honest about the approach, and ask your friends to compile similar lists, because everyone will benefit from knowing their own SWOT. So itemize each of the individual strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and record the list. Write it down under the various headings and just simply record it. As I said, this is an academic exercise. This is not aimed at getting a job in practice. So it has nothing to do with you as a person, I should say. It's nothing to do with you, that you're not going to give away any of your deep secrets here. This is simply writing down what you're good at. You're good at writing emails. You are good at doing mathematics up to a certain level. You're good computer skills. You're weak in terms of your ability to present information in person. You're weak in terms of your ability to simulate arguments or do some research. So you're weak in various ways, and you're strong in various ways. It's important to identify those and start making the list, as I said. Only relevant non-personal points should be taken into account. So there's nothing personal here. Do not include personal details about yourself. This is very professional. This is looking at simply your strengths and your weaknesses, opportunities, your threats. And there is nothing about you as a person in here. You are simply itemizing the type of person you are under those headings. And the purpose of this is so you have a picture of yourself. You have a picture of your strengths, so you know what to aim for, what type of work to aim for. You have a picture of your weaknesses, so you know what you need to do. What's the gap between the person you are right now and what the market requires? What is that gap, and how can you fill the gap? So try to be honest and as precise as you can. Otherwise, the exercise is a waste of time. Try to just get some friends around, get some paper, pens, and sit around and start making a list. And listen to their comments. If they know you, if they're your friends and they know you, and you say you've got a certain strength, they may disagree. They think it's not your strength. Or you might say you've got a certain weakness, and again, they may disagree. They say, well, actually, there was the time when you did that, and you did it very well, which may change your opinion about yourself. It's very difficult for us to see ourselves. It's far better if we try to get comments from others. And better still, if the people giving us comments are serious and trying to be as professional as they can and trying to be as honest as they can. So let's have a look at a SWOT analysis. You may have something like a heading with strengths, for example. And so you'd list out, what are your strengths? Well, your qualifications. Because your qualifications tell the reader what you have achieved, what you've done, and what are your skill set. What can the person reading it expect of you? You can expect that you can do certain amounts of mathematics and certain amounts of English and certain amounts of local language skills, and you understand different parts of the school syllabus, and you've achieved qualifications in those ways. So those are important. You've got some experience perhaps working in factories or in offices, or you had school jobs, or you had after school jobs, or you had some sort of experience. And all experience is valuable, because the experience is what partially makes you. We'll see later in classes related to this. We come across what's known as the Cobb learning cycle, which emphasizes the importance of experience and of experiential learning. When we have an experience, we reflect on the experience. When we reflect on it, we learn from the experience. So experiences are important. Then we have knowledge. Knowledge for its own sake. I mean, knowledge is what makes the person. We know things. We are aware of the world in which we live. We're aware of the big events in history, the big events in science, and so we are knowledgeable people. And that's a strength, because that makes us sociable. People can talk to us reasonably, and we understand certain things. And we have a good personal attitude, let's say. People like to know us because we're friendly, we're polite, we're well spoken and well presented. And we've got good motivation. We want to help, and we want to promote ourselves. We want to promote the business, so we're well motivated. So developing a list of strengths. There may be more than I've got there. There may be many more points that you want to add. Or some of these may not be that relevant, and you think, well, I'll just put it in, but I'm not going to play it up very much. But essentially what we've got is a list of strengths, and that's the important part. Now we can do this for the others as well. We can set this out for the other parts of the SWOT. So we could have weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I've just put in ideas in here. They're very straightforward. You may have different headings and different sets of points, but essentially under the weaknesses you have, what is it about you that disqualifies you from applying for certain jobs? Jobs that you want, careers that you want. So you want a career in a certain occupation. What qualifications must you have in order to apply for it? And when I say qualifications, I don't necessarily mean school qualifications or academic qualifications. I mean, what qualifications as a person? What background experience have you got? What knowledge have you got? What's your attitude? What's your motivation? These are the points from your strengths. But when you look at your weakness, you say, well, this is what I am right now, and that's what they want. There is a gap. How do I bridge the gap? I need more qualifications. I need to study more. I need to get more experience. And perhaps that's the way to bridge it. And that's the way to develop a good career. Likewise, opportunities. What are the available job vacancies and business opportunities, and what scholarships are available, because education is expensive, and it's important to try and get finance if you can, if it's available. What academic opportunities are available? How can you pick up reputable qualifications? How can you do reputable qualifications and make sure that you're not wasting your time just studying any old course? You're doing a proper course that's leading to a proper qualification. So what are the opportunities and what are the threats? Financial difficulties, government austerity. The government is trying to perhaps move jobs from one area to another because the other area is in a very bad economic position. But if they're going to move jobs from the area in which you are to a different area, it means that your job may be, or your career may be threatened. So try to go across all of these facts. And as I said, if you can work with some of your friends or with your family and sit down and just make lists like this, you will find that sometimes you may write something on your list which is a threat and they may not see it as that. So talk it over with them. Is this a threat or is it not? If it's not, take it off. Generally speaking, when doing this exercise, it's very easy to criticize yourself and say, I'm not very good at this, I can't present information, and I don't like to present in front of people, and so on. Now, talk to your friends about this and you may get a different picture. Because as I said earlier, it's very difficult for us to see ourselves. It's much easier for others to see us. So try to list your weaknesses and then consider ways of converting the weaknesses to strengths. Having got a list of your weaknesses, how can you redress these? How can you fix them? How can you fix the weaknesses? Try to turn them into strengths. Try to get rid of the weaknesses. And list the threats, whatever threats they are, and see if there are opportunities that arise out of the threat. If a company is moving from your area to a different area, is it possible to move with the company? Is it possible to apply and say that you are moving and you will move with them, so that when they go there they'll have a workforce that's already, if you like, acculturated to their way of working. You are already accustomed to the way they work, or you know about the company because it's in the local area, so they may give you the first chance of having a job in the new area, albeit it means that you have to move. But the history of the labour market right around the world is people do move. There have been major migrations of people right throughout history. We get people moving from one country to another, from one area in a country to another. It happens all the time. Now the career goals. Well, career goals are important objectives that people set to evaluate their progress along their career path. So a career goal is what you're aiming at. So you have a target. You're not just drifting, seeing what comes up and drifting along. You are aiming at some specific goal that you want to achieve, some specific career that you want. It could be in finance, in accountancy, in human resources, in marketing. It could be in one of many areas. But you have selected that because you believe it suits you and it suits your personality and you would be interested in it. So you've got a career path. You've set a goal, and the goal is to achieve work in this particular career path by a certain time. They can be made both by employed people and those searching for jobs, and include things like acquiring training in specialist fields or determining to reach a certain level of promotion in a set number of years. So the career goal could be aiming at some occupation that you want, and it could also be to have a career in that area by 2 years from now, let's say. And it could also be to have managerial position within that career path within 5 years. Now you've got a goal. Now you're aiming at something. You're no longer drifting along. You have got a specific target and you are aiming at that. So we have short-term personal goals. Difficult to say how long these are. Short-term is, could we say, 2 years. It depends. Let's say 2 years for short term. Medium term, in the medium term I want to be a manager in this occupation, in this company, and I want to achieve it in 5 years. That means you're going to have to do other things. You're going to have to build up your CV, your curriculum vitae. You're going to get extra experiences on. You're going to do extra short courses and improve your skill set so that you will get the promotion within the 5-year period. Now it's important to identify whether your goal is short term or medium term. Don't get the two confused. The short term is to get your foot in the door. The short term is to get a position in a certain occupation, the occupation that you've targeted. And you want to get that within, let's say, 2 years. The medium term is you want to get a certain position within that career path within, say, 5 years. You want to be a manager, or you want to run the local office, or you've got something in mind that you want to achieve in, let's say, the medium term. Now, SMART career goals. Well, we've met the term SMART in many videos on the course. It's an acronym for, well, we'll see what it stands for in a second, but it's important that you're familiar with this idea of SMART, and make sure you have got good notes explaining SMART, because it applies in so many areas and it crops up in a lot of reading in this area. Sorry, I've just flicked backwards. Just come back to it. Okay. For your career goal to be rational, it must be SMART. And SMART, as I said, is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So each letter of the word SMART means something. It's the first letter of the word. So specific, measurable, and so on. Now try to, if you have got a little group, let's say your friends, and you're all sitting around discussing the SWOT, and you're discussing career options and so on. Discuss with your group the term SMART in relation to your career goal. So make sure that your career goal meets the SMART set of objectives. So don't say you want to work in retail. Let's not have that, because that's not very specific. Let's say you want to work for Tesco's supermarket, which is a UK company that's now more or less all over the world. Let's say you want to work for Tesco's. That's a bit more specific. You don't just want to work for Tesco's, you want to work for Tesco's in the vegetable section. You've got a particular interest in that area. It just happens to be something that you're interested in. You like gardening and you like agriculture and so on, so you want to work in that area. Now, you're being even more specific again. Don't make it down to the last point that you just want to work in selling carrots. I mean, that's too specific. But just narrow it down so that you have got a particular interest and a particular area to aim at. Let's look at the SMART goals in more detail. First one is, as I said, specific. Goals should be as specific as possible. So what is the goal? And the goal should be, you should be able to state what the goal is. The goal is, I wish to work for Tesco's supermarket in a large city, responsible for the vegetable section. And I want to do that within the next 2 years. Now that's very specific. It may be, unfortunately, you don't achieve that, but you have now built up an expertise in that area. So if you don't get a job with Tesco's, perhaps you'll get a job with another supermarket. Or you'll get a job with some company distributing to supermarkets. because you have a particular expertise. You are selling something very specific that you have built up knowledge of, detailed knowledge of that particular sector. So you are being specific. Make sure you can measure your goal to see if they're being met. If you say, I want to have this particular position within the next 2 years, now that's measurable. At the end of 2 years, have you got it or not? If you haven't got it, you're measuring now. If you haven't got it, you failed. You need to revise your plan, your development plan. So it is measurable. That's the point. Make sure the goal is achievable. It's pointless aiming at something that can't be achieved. That's just fantasy. So look at all of the constraints in your life. Look at where you are, the conditions you're working under, your resources, the amount of money you've got. If you're working, how much do you get every month or every week? How much time have you got? Are you working long hours? What time have you got available? So giving all the constraints in your life, is it achievable? Is the goal achievable in the timescale you set? Are they realistic? Are the goals you've set, are they realistic? Are the resources available to achieve the objectives? The human, the financial, the materials? Are you in a position to do this? Or are you wasting your own time and just drawing up a development plan and you have no real intention of following it through? So make sure that the objectives you're setting yourself are realistic. Make sure that the goals are realistic. Make sure that you can achieve what you're setting out to do. And have it as time-bound. A goal should be grounded within a time frame. So your objective is to get, let's say, a diploma in business, a higher diploma in business within 2 years. Your next objective is to get an honours degree within the following year or 18 months or 2 years. So let's say, just in case something goes wrong, let's say within the following 2 years. So in other words, from now, at the end of 4 years, you should have a good honours degree in business or business and management. And you should have specialised within that to enable you to get a good career in a certain sector of industry or commerce. That's time-bound. At the end of 4 years from now, if you have not got your good honours degree, you have failed to meet the SMART goals that you've set at the start. So it's a good idea to keep what you're developing here. Keep the pieces of paper to remind you that this is the path that you're heading out on, and this is what you need to do. Some students use Gantt charts to map their progress. So that may be too extreme, but at least keep an eye. Put a date on the activity that you're doing currently, and then say, well, okay, in 24 months or in 30 months from now, I will have a good honours degree. There you go. Now it's time-bound. Now, personally, design a career goal for yourself, separating between the short term and the medium term. So set up your career goal and work out what is short term and what's the long term and what shall be achieved in both of these. State how you're going to achieve the goal, remembering the SMART objectives. State how you're going to achieve it and be realistic about this. And seek comments and criticisms from colleagues and friends. And the criticisms should be constructive. Don't just take personal criticism or criticism for the fun of it. This is a very important activity. So serious criticism. When people say, can you really do this? Can you really afford the time to do that? Can you really deliver this diploma or this degree in that period of time? Can you really get this career if you got those? So seek out comments and criticisms and be able to address those, be able to answer them, and answer them realistically. Don't get emotional. This is very logical. This is very, very straightforward. It requires straightforward answers. So the criticisms should be constructive. And remember to assess everything in terms of its smartness, in terms of the SMART criteria that we looked at earlier. And I just have a very few words about the curriculum vitae, the VT. The curriculum vitae is a document, ideally a short document. If you send an employer a long CV, they're not going to read it. They're busy people. So keep the CV short, ideally one side of A4 or 2 sides of A4 paper. Nothing too long. The CV should only contain what it is that you can prove about yourself. It should only contain summaries of your achievements. It should set out your qualifications, your experiences, your aspirations, a little about yourself. And make sure that whatever you write that's bordering on the personal is checked by your family and friends. So, for example, you might list your hobbies and say, in my spare time I like to read and I like to play hockey, or I like walking in the hills, or whatever. So something which is honest, but at the same time it just paints a slightly bigger picture of you. Now, the best way to get CVs and get documents to fill out here would probably be on Microsoft Word or on one of the sites associated with that. There are templates that you can download, curriculum vitae templates. Get a chronological one organized by date. Go to sites, type in CV template, see what comes up, and get one. They're free. Don't pay for one. Only get the free ones, because the free ones are as good as the others in our experience. A lot of the others are they don't add significant value to justify the fee. So get a free one, and it may need adjusting, it may need altering the heading slightly or moving sections around slightly. But start to fill out your CV. This is a document about you and about what you have done and what you are doing. So a CV is a written description of your professional development to date with respect to a potential job. It contains your educational history, your work experience, your skills and your hobbies. Research online to see what it should include and what it shouldn't. Look for example CVs. Go online and see if you can find some. You will find support for this in other modules, but for the moment in this module we're just going to introduce the idea and ask you to do some research yourself on the preparation of your CV. We're not actually going to do it here. As I said, this is an activity that we will develop elsewhere. But for the moment, you see how far you can get on your own and with the help of your colleagues to develop a CV and see what examples exist out there in internet land and see what you can do to devise your own, which will project the best image of you in the labour market. So prepare a CV for yourself in readiness for a job application. You're also going to need a CV for your application for a degree or for other qualifications. A CV is an essential document, and a good CV is very important. It should not be a long document with lots of words and rambling stories, and it should be professionally done almost. It should have the appearance of extreme professionalism. It should be short and snappy and to the point, because the person reading it hasn't got a lot of time to sit reading lots of CVs with lots of words. So prepare one, and as I said, we will return to preparing CVs and looking at CVs elsewhere in the course. But for the moment, this is all we want to do on this topic. In fact, that's all I want to do in this particular class. So I'm going to leave it there and say thank you for watching.